Hi, Professor Simba. It is Ali Holdren, and today we are going to be discussing in this video 7-Eleven, and specifically 7-Eleven in Indonesia, and a country of my choosing, which you'll find out in a minute. Here is why 7-Eleven failed in Indonesia. Well, first of all, they only had 190 stores. I'll go into the competitors soon, but 190 compared to the 40,000 retailers found in Indonesia, not great odds to start off with. But they did have high revenues with a max of about $78 million, which for that amount of stores, I'd say that's pretty good. A lot of their business was coming from college students because they had their main locations in huge cities like Jakarta and the cities surrounding. So there were college students who were leaving class and going to hang out with their friends. They were getting alcohol, getting snacks, just chilling for a few hours, which, 7-Eleven kind of capitalized on that, and that's where a lot of the revenues came from. They did find that most of the customers coming in were really only buying like a drink or a snack, which did end up contributing to the downfall of 7-Eleven in Indonesia. Going into the competitors, the two major competitors that 7-Eleven faced were Indomaret, which had 15,000 locations, and Alfamart, which had over 10,000 locations. And they had already been well established before 7-Eleven entered Indonesia, so they had a bit of a history there. But what really did 7-Eleven in was the major alcohol sale ban from mini marts and retailers such as 7-Eleven and Indomaret and Alfamart. But Alfamart and Indomaret did well following the alcohol ban because they offered a much wider selection of products and drinks, so they didn't struggle as much as 7-Eleven did following the regulatory changes and alcohol ban. But the final nail in the coffin for 7-Eleven was the Indonesian economic slowdown. So they just couldn't survive that. So they had to eventually close their stores. Following up with that, a country I think would do very well with a 7-Eleven, or 7-Eleven would do very well in, is Jamaica. I believe Jamaica would be a great country for 7-Eleven to enter because it's such a huge tourist destination, and I feel that the Jamaicans living there would also appreciate the convenience that 7-Eleven has to offer. But to preface all of that, I kind of want to go into just some things that I found about Jamaica. Obviously, Jamaica's famous for Bob Marley and reggae. Also, Usain Bolt, one of the greatest and fastest sprinters of all time, is from Jamaica. So Jamaica is very famous for the music and the sports, which is a huge draw. I personally went to Jamaica and I visited where Bob Marley is from. I listened to Bob Marley growing up a lot, so that was really cool. And some quirks that I found, it's just with their phrases. They say good night in the early evening. So, typically people would be like, have a good afternoon, have a good day, but they say good night, regardless of kind of how early it is. And then they also demonstrate their laid back position on time and punctuality when they say soon come. So soon come as in, it'll happen soon, but not right now. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I think for 7-Eleven, to enter Jamaica, they would be using the franchising method. I mean, they're a huge franchising company, so it would only make sense. They'll have limited risk and cost. It won't cost them a lot to start up in Jamaica. However, they will have some less control because they are franchising in another country with a bit of less revenue because they will be giving royalties, or they'll have to deal with the royalties and all of that. And then they'll have to deal with some potential competition already existing in Jamaica, and also that might arise in the future. In regards to the infrastructure, they have an infrastructure score of 2.4, whereas the US has a 3.9. So it's not as great as ours, but it could absolutely be worse. When it comes to transportation, they have huge freeway systems. They used to use railways, but not so much anymore after the creation of the freeways. And they have 3 international airports, which is pretty cool. I thought that was really interesting. I didn't know that. And they have ports for cruise ships. That's how I got to experience Jamaica. Unfortunately, I was only there for about a day, but given the chance, I would absolutely go back. And then they also use the Panama Canal for transportation and trade. When it comes to mobile penetration or internet, they have a fully digital telephone communication system according to their Wikipedia, with a mobile penetration of 95%. So a huge majority of the population has access to the internet and mobile devices. And they have local or national internet providers, including Digicel Jamaica and Flow Jamaica, so the equivalent of our T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, what have you. Some things that could inhibit infrastructure-wise 7-Eleven's ability to thrive in Jamaica would be, obviously, because they are in the Caribbean and they do have tropical weather patterns, they would be facing things such as hurricanes, which could cause the roadways to deteriorate, which correlates with the kind of low infrastructure score. They have to deal with power outages, which can impact a really, really large portion of the population, obviously, since 95% have been using mobile devices and all that. So that could definitely cause obstacles for 7-Eleven in Jamaica. But with that being said, I still believe 7-Eleven would really thrive in Jamaica, not just because it's a tourist destination. I mean, personally, if I went into another country and saw a 7-Eleven, I'd kind of be curious. I'd want to pop in and see what they have compared to what we have here in the States. But also, I think that the Jamaicans who live there could benefit from the 24/7 convenience of having everything they need there. Obviously, they would have to compete with things like markets and other vendors, but the markets and vendors aren't open 24/7, and they don't offer all the things that 7-Eleven could offer as well. So some Jamaicans could appreciate the convenience and the variety of having, new products in the 7-Eleven, but also 7-Eleven could pair up with the vendors and sell their products as well. So it's not just the standardized, American Western, the American products that we sell here could have a mix of local products to be sold as well, which could really boost tourist foot traffic towards the 7-Elevens, and also the Jamaicans appreciating a 7-Eleven, appreciating Jamaican culture as well. So that's why I believe that Jamaica would be a great country for 7-Eleven to enter, and why 7-Eleven would thrive in Jamaica. So thank you. Have a good day.